thank you for watching. Thank you for dialing in. So I'm so happy Malcolm is joining us today. We were going to follow the usual setup, but we only have one heater in the house. So we decided to both sit on top of each other and try to fit in on the screen.
Yeah, stay warm.
Yeah, just to stay warm. So Caleb doesn't have a heater and he's probably going to run into the room anytime soon, demanding we give the heater back. So let's give them the news. There's lots of news for Earth Yoga.
Mm-hmm.
We had our exams and ceremony or teacher's graduation over the past few days. And I'm such a proud hen. Our teachers did so well. And you will definitely be seeing some of their classes added to the schedule real soon. We also, as you know, on Sunday is the Yoga Summit. It's this Sunday already, the 21st of June. We'll start at 8. It's going to be the whole day up until 5 o'clock. There's different classes throughout the day, handstand workshop, meditation workshops, yin yoga, slow yoga, flow yoga, whatever yoga you want to do, we're going to do it on the day. So go and check out our website. It's also all over social media. You can book in on Book a Mat or just use the link, just dial in. It's totally free for the whole day, and we will be dialing in, or I'll be dialing in the classes that I'm teaching from the yoga studio. Then also the biggest news is that we are reopening soon. Yay! Obviously with social distancing rules and sanitizing classes or after classes, so we might have to change some of the class times by just a little bit, by moving them up a little bit to give us some time to clean in between classes. Classes will still be online. We're going to stream from online, from the studio. So you have the option to either come in and do the group class or dial in from home. Some classes will only be online. New time slots are going to be added, and all classes that were cancelled, we will be adding back to the schedule again. So we are very excited. When we saw people over the weekend, I mean, online teaching is great, but having that in-person experience is like, you think you're fine with it until you have it, then you realize, oh my gosh, I have missed it so much and I need it so much for my own health and well-being. So we feel it is our duty to open. People have asked and people need this for our health and wellness. So we are excited to see you again soon.
Yeah.
Then Malcolm, thank you so much for being on my show. Usually at this point, the people will pop up on the screen. So thank you so much for taking the time. I know that you are very busy. So Malcolm is not just the co-owner of Earth Yoga Studio and helped me build all of this. He is also involved with other businesses. He's a web designer. He's a graphic designer. He is into permaculture. He loves plants. He has a company called The Grow College. The Grow College. So yeah, let's just jump in straight there with the plants. So you have always loved plants. Tell us a bit about your journey, like where we know your yoga side, but I think many people don't know the plant side. So you've always had this love with plants. Where did it start?
So I wouldn't necessarily say I've always had a love for plants.
Okay.
Yeah, it's something that I've kind of grown to love. I remember in the beginning, actually, the first few plants that I planted died. But that was a long time ago. All right, so and then basically my journey with plants kind of started with the same journey with us. Me personally leaving the whole corporate sphere of things and starting a garden kind of out of necessity, right? When things are unsure, we tend to be in a fear space. And one of the things that I found was if I could grow my own food at least, then I'd be less scared. At least I'd have something to eat, and that's basically where it all kind of started. I generally do too many things. As you heard, I mean, I've got the Grow College, which is surrounding my love of cannabis, you know, and that's also been part of this whole journey, really, using cannabis as a medicine, you know. And this was in 2009 or somewhere around that. So over a decade ago. So it's been a very, very long journey, and it's grown pretty organically. Along with the garden, I mean, I've pretty much explored permaculture and sustainability with this whole journey, and that's kind of the stuff that I thought we could go through today and share. Yeah. Specifically today, I mean, in this current day and age with the world as it is, I think it's evident that things are maybe a bit off-center.
Quite right.
Not quite right. Yeah. So that's when we can kind of like get into this whole sustainability thing. And I mean, you've been there with me through the whole process of the journey. And yeah, we've learned a lot. We've explored Earthships, which is...
Okay, hang on. Before we get to the Earthships, so let's just come back to the cannabis. So you're talking about cannabis as a medicine, and and also if we look at how much things have changed in the cannabis industry and people's point of view of it, like I feel like it's an important vehicle for change towards the future that most of us want and are looking for. I feel like cannabis plays a big part in that. And maybe not just for the medicine side, but maybe also hemp and building materials.
Yeah. In terms of sustainability, I mean, it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. You know, it can be used for so many different things. Yeah.
And then also our clothing. I mean, this plastic age is maybe we can move now into a cannabis age, and cannabis can start replacing the plastic, can start replacing some of the fossil fuels that we are using, and we can maybe make some biofuels. I'm not sure, like you're a scientist, how does that?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily a scientist, I just spend a lot of time on the internet, right? Maybe too much. But yeah, with regards to, I mean, the research on cannabis in terms of sustainability is all out there. You know, I can speak about that stuff, but I can speak really from my own personal experience, and I think that's where the value comes in. You know, a lot of us, want to get into cannabis, and there's many ways that you can kind of get into the industry. In terms of sustainability, that's still a very new thing that people are kind of just trying out. But what you can do with cannabis is, from a medicinal point of view, is holistic healing. You know, and like, I mean, most of us, there was this big stigma about cannabis, and nowadays, I mean, everybody's using it down to the grannies, right? And I think a lot of the time that people have a bad experience with cannabis, because, I mean, there's not a lot of good information out there on how to actually use it as a medicine, right? And that's kind of where it boils down to figuring out what's known as your minimum effective dose, right? Your med, all right? So with a lot of the research that I've done, cannabis in terms of healing, this is kind of where the sweet spot is. Now we're talking about your general ailments, your general well-being. You know, if you struggle with stress, anxiety, and all of these things, this is where you want to kind of be at, and that's basically where you're not in a kind of a comatose state, right? When we're using cannabis, it just so happens that it works with the body's own natural healing processes. You know, it's like, what do they say? It's like a key to a lock, so to speak. It unlocks the body's potential to bring back this symbiosis, this natural balance space, right? And then whenever we are stressed out, the body doesn't have an ability to heal because it's thinking about, okay, I need to conserve resources, right? When we're in a safe space, that's when we can kind of get into this healing space. And that's what we want to do with cannabis, right? And that's what it actually allows for, if you learn how to use it properly, right? And that minimum effective dose, it allows us to down-regulate the nervous system and bring us to that, you know, that parasympathetic state, that more calm instead of flight or fright, right? That's also what we're doing in yoga, right? It's all kind of linked in the whole process. Yes. Yeah? So how do you figure out your minimum effective dose? Do you know?
Trial and error.
Pretty much. Right? Pretty much.
Take too much, or no, that was too much.
Yeah, it's
take too little, or it has no effect.
For the new guys getting into cannabis, you know, take the time to figure out what works for you, because it's such a interesting plant. Like so through the social club that I run, it's really more about research. and we get feedback from people using the different strains that we have available. And it's interesting how different people react completely different, right? So there's an Mct Tincture that we make, which is a 300 milligram strength. And basically I had this guy, he's 6 foot something, you know, gym builder, bodybuilder type of dude, take 3 drops. Well, what was equivalent to 3 drops? Yeah, I think so. And he was out for 2-3 days.
Sure, even with a big body.
Yeah. And then we have little girls, you know, firecrackers, so to speak. They can take like a whole vial type of thing, which is 15, 20
That's
drops.
interesting. So that maybe it's more of your energetic construction, personality, versus how big your body is.
Well, I also think it also has to do with perception. You know, like if you're told, oh my God, this stuff is going to make you go crazy, whatever, you have some underlying, you know, perception based on what you're going to experience. Because I've also had people take like pretty much next to nothing, and then they start complaining about heart palpitations and all of these types of things.
They've read and have been told that is...
Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation. Generally, I find with the older people that are kind of stuck, you know, in that whole dacha, you know, it's the devil's drug, and all of those types of things. But the more new crowd that are using it as a medicine, I see very little, if any, of that type of situations. You know, most people, they figure out what is their minimum effective dosage, and then they can move from that space. You know, so a good place to start is to find something that is measured, right? A lot of the tinctures out there and medicines out there, amazing medicines, you know, it's just that we need to get into some space where people know exactly what strength they have available. So find a tincture or an edible that comes with some label, some information, and then based on that you can be like, okay, cool. Say this 10 milligram cookie, for instance, right? If you have half of that cookie, how does it make you feel, right? And then also when you're trying to figure out your minimum effective dose in terms of cannabis, it's good to start or try at the same time, or whenever, like, so if you're taking, for instance, cannabis to help you with sleep, do it at the same time in the evening, right? So if you go to bed at 10, maybe at 8, 7:30 type of thing, giving it time to kind of work into your system, and you can notice, you know, what are the effects. If it's too strong, too intense, then take quarter cookie, you know, and then
just gauge it from there.
Yeah, and then once you start to know, you know, what your minimum effective dose is, then you can kind of get into the whole space, you know. But this is the thing with cannabis, it's a very versatile medicine, because, right, depending on what you're working with, ailment type of thing, maybe you need a very milder dose, and that's when smoking is a good option to get into, you know.
There's too many different ways of taking it. And then it also helps for many different diseases.
Yeah, I mean, like, what I always tell people that get into the club is, Google cannabis and your whatever it is. Chances are you're gonna find both sides. Oh no, it can't help. Oh no, it can help. You know, so it's very subjective. I always tell people, you know, we follow a lot of information or a lot of advice from other people. We don't necessarily trust our own opinions. You know, so take the time to kind of figure out your own opinion around cannabis. And then from there, try, see what works. You know, so everybody's going to tell you, oh my God, this is going to maybe cause you, make you go schizophrenic. And then you'll find the information that'll back that up, because, I mean, everything is kind of skewed out there. You know, but the only thing that you can kind of really trust is your own experience, right? Right, so move into that sphere and then just try, figure it out for yourself. You know, don't always believe what other people say, you know, especially today.
Yeah, and if it's helped so many people all across the globe, then...
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's not something new, right? It's been around for thousands.
Yeah, the Egyptians used it. It's used
I think
Ayurvedically.
I think we read something about Shakespeare, where they found, was it hash or some type of residue in some pot or something like that.
Yes, that was in the museum. I remember that.
So, you know, and like that's one of the things that I think people can really get benefit of from cannabis. You know, like it really, we tend to be overthinking a lot of the time. You know, and yes, depending on whatever strain you're using or your predisposition to cannabis that it can make it worse when you overthink, or it can also start to calm things down. That's when we get into now figuring out terpene profiles, and that's something that most people don't necessarily talk about. Right? People know THC and CBD and all of those types of things.
So what are terpenes?
Terpenes. So
Terpenes.
so terpenes are, well, they're part of the cannabis plant, right? So it's nothing external from the cannabis plant. And terpenes aren't only present in cannabis; it's present in all types of plants, you know. But specifically in terms of cannabis, people generally overlook terpenes, where there's a lot of new information out there, maybe also old information, that suggests that it's the terpenes that are kind of like the conductors through your whole experience. So yes, THC, CBD, kind of like the bass tones in an orchestra. And terpenes are really the one that say when, how long, how intense. You know, is it more sleepy? Is it more euphoric? Is it more, you know, exciting type of situation?
Okay.
You know, so they actually play now in terms of medicinal value. Like, you know, this is the thing you can argue. There's medicinal cannabis and there's recreational cannabis. You know, in my opinion, all cannabis is medicinal, whether it's recreational or medicinal. So the main thing comes into kind of like with organically grown cannabis and hydroponic cannabis, and the cannabis industry is so opinionated, which is okay. You know, everybody figures out their own way of doing things,
and then believe that's the best way.
Yeah, you know, and like what I found is like different things are going to work in different spaces because everything is different. There's microclimates and different variables that adjust specific types of things. But just coming back to the terpenes, so with organic cannabis, generally this is where we get a little bit more of the terpene production, and this is why maybe if you're looking at using cannabis as a medicine, look at getting organic cannabis. You know, there's some research that suggests there's a beneficial, there's a symbiotic role between the microbes or the organisms in the soil and the terpene production. So, you know, and this is the thing when you get into now just permaculture and learning about natural ecosystems and natural patterns, you see like how it's not just about the plant and giving the plant, it's about feeding the soil and creating this natural balance, you know, and that's kind of like what I think that we taken away from nature and moving into society. That's something that we got to look at, you know, integrating natural processes in the way that we kind of do things. Anyway.
So that leading then to natural processes and how can we incorporate nature more into our existence to lead to a sustainable future. So cannabis is definitely one of the ways that we're going to get there.
Yeah.
But then also the Earthship, which is a brilliant concept. And we tried to build one. We didn't finish it yet, but we did do the hardest part. So an Earthship is when you take a tire and you fill it with sand and you pound the tires until it pops. Yeah. And it's like 200 kgs of sand that goes into that thing. So it's a lot of pounding. It took us in the beginning, it took me 2 hours to pound the tire. By the end of it, I was about on 40 minutes on a tire, and my muscles were very big. I would pick up these logs and throw them out the way. I felt like Tarzan on that farm. It was amazing. Yeah. But yeah, so coming back to the Earthship, tell us more about how they work.
Okay, so like the Earthship is just one of the ways in terms of sustainability, right? Generally, through this whole process of learning about growing vegetables and learning about permaculture and urban permaculture and growing things in the city. That's kind of what I, in a sense, we were working towards an Earthship, but I didn't know of the Earthship at the time. So an Earthship is basically, the guy's name that came up with the concept is Mike Reynolds, right? And he built this amazing village in Mexico, I think it is. Just go online and have a look at that. But I mean, you know the process. They use trash, you know, bottles, plastic, tires, to make these artworks, structures. But the main downside for me with the Earthship is the average person, right? You and me, when we first got out there, we're not made for that type of hard labor. Yes, farm people, fine, no problem, they're tough.
And us city folk.
Yeah. So it's an amazing concept, right? And just for those of you that don't necessarily know about Earthships, what they take into consideration is it's a sustainable house. So in a sense that it provides all of the conditions for the residents of the structure. So it gives you power, it gives you water, it also gives you food, right? So which is kind of like your main, human needs in a sense, right? And how they do that is by rainwater collection. They also the water is used something like 5 times. You got gray water that goes into plant beds, which is like a greenhouse that's built into the structure, and through this intelligent design, it self-regulates temperature using thermal mass. So like half of the house is buried, right? So it uses that thermal mass, or this concept of thermal cooling, whereas if you dig a specific distance down underground, the temperature is constant, right? So it uses this concept to regulate during summer and winter, so you don't need air conditioning, you don't need all of these stuff that necessarily very resource intensive.
No, and the air is clean. I just realized I never actually thought about that, is that the plants in the house is cleaning the air all the time. You are breathing in fresh air.
Yeah, so the Earthships are an amazing concept that I think can be implemented in the way that we do things in the city, in the way that we build our current cities. There's I spend a lot of time on the internet, and there's people out there doing amazing things. In terms of the current day and age, the current situation that we're faced with gives us an opportunity to explore these different options. If you have time, and most of us do right now, have a look at the Venus Project, started by Jacques Fresco. All right.
He is amazing.
Yeah, it's basically a very...
Okay, but hang on, we're getting there. So with the Earthships, they look a bit like a hobbit house. So go and check it out if you like hobbit houses, but there are also many other options of building houses. We just like the creative art. We like that you're using trash as a resource. And with that, yeah,
and then also
not wasting, but using the waste.
And just talking about like trash in general and making this comparison between nature and the way that we do things. I think that's the way. We've always taken our technology from nature, right? Airplanes come from birds. We watch and we observe and we apply those patterns. So the same thing. In nature, there is no such thing as trash, right? Everything is a resource. And this is kind of like the main things around the resource-based economy that Jacques Fresco and those, the Zeitgeist movement and the Venus Project talk about, right? They talk about that. What is the limiting factor? Like realistically, if money was not an object, right, what is the limiting factor for you to do anything? It's if you have the resources, right? If you don't have bricks, you can't build a house, right? That's the only, yes, don't forget about the money aspect. So this is what they look at the world. We have a set of resources and we manage those resources intelligently and we kind of distribute. That's in a nutshell is the Venus Project. And it's a very utopian, idealistic way of doing things. Yes, if we could get there, it'll be great. But I think that there needs to be some changeover because we live in the current world.
Yes, and I was thinking about it. So now, it's all good saying, okay, resource-based economy instead of money. So just take a moment now and think about it. Not having money, not having to work for money, not having money as a system to go by. You would go and pick up your food for the day because that is what you need. Or it would already be incorporated in your living space. Your house will provide your water, your electricity, and your food. You don't have to go outside your house to go get it. You don't have to pay anyone because it is made for you for free.
Okay, wait, hold on. Before the corporates come and kill us, right? Listen. So this is the thing. It's yes, right? If you could do it for yourself, yes. But there's a cost.
Yes, now not everyone can do it.
But there needs to be some transition, and like we can't exclude the people that are currently. We need to look at stepping stones to move towards the right situation. So firstly, the first thing that we need to do is, instead of just looking at, let's think about it. When we build a house, what do we look at? We look at, okay, the house needs to get power, which is kind of shipped in. The house needs to get water, which is shipped in. And the house needs space for its occupants. Yes, and sanitation and all of those types of things, right? I mean, those are the things. We don't think about food. We don't think about the sustainability of the occupants, right? And this is so, I mean, with the internet, we have these things called like PaaS, which is platform as a service, right? And it's basically where you sign up for something and they offer you that service. So it's the same thing if we can apply, for instance, PaaS, power as a service, right? So ESCOM comes into your space, they install the solar panels, and you pay them a monthly fixed fee type of thing for that platform as a service type of thing. You know, so there's ways of integrating all of these types of services, you know? Like, if you just look at the internet, you know, I'm into software design as well. You know, one of the reasons that communications is possible on the internet is because it's a fault-tolerant system. And what that basically means is that, like, if I'm trying to send information this way and that pathway, whatever, is broken, I can go around. I can find another situation, right? So that's because each little node has everything it needs for communication to exist. So if you talk about sustainability in the home, that's what the Earthship is, right? So if we design our new cities, new ways with that type of thinking, the home is this unit of sustainability for our people, and then that in itself is scalable. We don't have shortages, you know. And there's like people think, oh, what about the farmers and what about all of these things? We're still going to need farmers, you know. There's only so much.
And there's still people
grow.
that love farming.
Yeah, you know. And if you look at, I saw something that showed up on my Instagram sponsored thing about how Dubai is investing in these vertical farms and all of these types of things, you know. So farming is going to change. It has to change, like everything else, right? I mean, that's the only true constant. Things are going to change, you know. So yeah, it's just coming back with this whole model of sustainability and looking at the home as the sustainable unit, right? So if we can figure out a way that the home provides for all of its occupants, and then we plug each of these little cells into each other, right? Then we get a sustainable grid. Isn't that how the human body works?
There's going to be a surplus in food, and that can go back into the system. A surplus of power, a surplus of water, a surplus of food. That goes into the system that then gets distributed. Well, we're going to end up with too much. With abundance, because if everyone gets the cell of a house.
Yeah, so what it is it's a decentralized grid. So instead of having these systems of like big manufacturing, we look at micro industry. I mean, we still can have big industry. They should support micro industry. You want an example of that? Think about craft breweries, right? With this whole situation, there might even be craft tobacco, you know, just down the line type of thing. So there's these niche markets, and I know most people have a job for the sake of having a job. You know, to be able to pay their bills.
To buy the clothes, to put the petrol in the car, to pay for the car, to get to the job.
So this begs the question, what happens to civilization or to people if like their basic needs are covered? They're not in the state of, oh no, I need to fight, I need to survive, I need to, you know, they can be like, okay, let me just take a step back, I can breathe, I don't have all of that anxiety attached to that. And then, let's say I don't like the corporate job, which is most people, right? Maybe I want to be an artist. Maybe I want to be a micro-urban permaculturist farmer.
Maybe I want to do something different every month. And then that's what living is. Right? You go and express yourself in these different ways. Go try out different things.
Yeah.
You don't have to spend your time slaving away.
Yeah, you know, I think, and then we can look at freeing the human, you know, and that's kind of the thing. We've been stuck kind of just banging out in this system, looking for solutions in this cage.
But we never change the cage.
Yeah, I think that's what's allowed for. I think we can open the cage.
However, now many people, you must now understand, and I think especially with the older generations, they have spent their entire lives dedicated to gathering money and to like hoarding or collecting money so that their children will be okay and their children's children will be okay. So obviously for you, it will be very hard to give up that money. So this is where the resistance comes to the change. And I think that there's only a very few people in the world that have the stored and hoarded money. And that's also where the problem lies.
Yeah, but I mean, you think about
because they are refusing to give that up. They will never give up their money. Me, my savings that I've collected my whole life, if it's for the betterment of all, then you can take my money. I don't care. I would take that money towards bringing change to the new way.
Well, now I don't think even most people have that money with the situation, right? So, I think it's not an issue. Yes, I mean, there's a small majority that controls the populace of the finances, but the majority doesn't, you know. And this is the thing. Like, business always listens to consumers. We always say, oh, we're being marketed this type of stuff, but I mean,
we're being fed what we want.
Yeah, that's the thing. They do surveys and they interact with people.
Research.
Exactly. And so yes and no. I mean, we can argue opinions, whatever.
Yes.
But that's not what it's about. It's about sharing ideas and looking for solutions. You know, and this is the thing. If we always do the same, we'll always have the same.
Yes, it's like we just keep knocking our heads against the wall. Oh yes, we are destroying our planet. Yes, we're destroying the planet, but we just keep going. We're not. There are companies, I guess, and people that are out there that's doing change. Like that 13-year-old that started that thing cleaning up the oceans. I mean, that's the kind of thinking that we need if anything is going to change.
Yeah. So, and I think the only way you can get to that type of thinking if we can allow humans to feel safe. Right? Because you can only make those amazing discoveries if you're in a good space. If you're worried about paying bills, you know, your mental capacity is subdivided. You can't concentrate on what needs to be done. You know, so like I keep coming back to this idea of the sustainable home. Right? If we can make the home more human, so that it can actually care for its existence. You know what I mean? Not just shelter, but you know, fully. Then we have a chance at scalability, sustainability. Right, because that's what it's about. Right? And then it doesn't matter how many, whatever how many billions of people there are, because every home, we work it into the construction, is able to produce food, water, electricity for that the amount of occupants. You know, and these are realistic things that we can do in this day and age. And then that eventually, I mean, it's still going to cost money, right? Solar panels aren't being printed for free, not yet anyway. You know, so.
And then in this new system, I mean, is there really need for government? Is there really need for prisons? You know, if you think of how some of which country was it that have that very small
one of the cold
population?
Ones.
Yeah, one of the cold ones up north somewhere.
One of those.
And they have this very small amount of people that are in jail, and like the one guy, I think his sentence is 15 years. That's like the most. Because they look at it very differently. They take the people, they rehabilitate them, they give them therapy, they work with them. Because if you put someone in a horrible prison that we see here in South Africa and America, that is only going to perpetuate the bad stuff. It's not going to get any better. People come out worse out of prison. They don't come out better.
Now, like, if you need research and you're that type of person that wants the information, this is where the Venus Project and the Zeitgeist movement, because they have all of this information. They've researched into this. They can tell you, you know, human nature and behavior and all of this stuff. If you want to argue all of these types of things,
they're looking at the psychology of humans and just start treating each other better and putting us in a system where we're able to do that, where we're not always constantly fighting for more, because there is enough. Elon Musk also says so. Don't listen to Bill Gates. Listen to Elon Musk. There is more than enough on this planet for everyone, and we can even double our population. There will still be enough, but we need to manage it. We need to think smart.
Yeah, we need to think abundance. You know, if we're stuck in scarcity,
and a system that has a government, it's kind of, you know, it's power. It's look how much our government officials are getting paid. Can some of that money not go towards sustainable living for all of the people in South Africa?
Well,
is there not a better way? Like that will always happen then if there's a government. Even if we change the government, it wouldn't.
I think, well, getting into political.
Sorry, I don't mean to be political. I'm just talking about the system itself.
So here's my understanding, right? With government, at least in an ideal space, right? Government is supposed to take input from the population and then action those things.
Yes.
You know, so it's got this from the bottom up. Right now we're being dictated from the top down.
Down, yes.
You know, that's still kings and queens mentality, and I mean that's supposedly a long time gone. You know, so
You also have to ask, does democracy really work? Because so many people do not vote.
well, this is the thing, you know.
So not everyone is voicing their voices. Democracy only means that those that speak up are being heard.
Yeah, but like, you know, the aim of democracy is to basically find some common ground for the benefit of everybody.
But there must be a next level of democracy now.
Yeah, I hear you, but like we were talking about like what's the roots and how do we move to the thingy, you know, and like with this whole democracy thing, it needs to be shifted in a way where we can take information, and we have the technology, you know, so if we can get that information, then we can do educated choices, because the reality of the situation, no human is an isolated thingy. So yes, you can go live off-grid, whatever, but your clothes, right, your grain, whatever you need is generally made by some other human. Right, and the body is the same thing.
Yeah,
No cell
very
exists.
few people that are living. If you look at those Alaskians, I mean, some of them still have to buy equipment from town.
No, there always has to be some trade, right? Like, you know,
We need each other.
we as a species have evolved by the stuff people have learned. You know, so nobody. What is that Isaac Newton saying? I've been able to see ahead of something because I've been able to stand on the shoulders of giants. You know, and this is the thing. That's how we work. That's how we evolve as a species. We learn, we work together, we figure stuff out, and we move forward instead of fighting. You know, we need to find that union, that yoga. Right? That's why we practice all of these things to look and like. And for me, that's really the stuff behind permaculture and cannabis and all of these things. With cannabis, it allows to strip away the layers so you can find union in your body. You know, not just caught up too much in the mind, but union between mind, body, spirit, soul. There's a whole other energetic connection as well. You know, and then we got to find the union in our society as well, the way that we do things with the home, right? Like I keep bringing it to this body mentality because we are one organism as a human. It's just single cells that need to work together to make this work. And I mean, that's what the earth is. It's the body of the human type of thing, you know, for lack of a better analogy.
Yeah, we need to come together with nature again.
And if we observe nature in permaculture, right, you don't necessarily want to ship stuff in. You don't want to bring your fertilizer from China and use it here. Right? If you look at a forest, because that's what it all is in permaculture, we're stacking the same layers as in a forest, but in an urban environment into our advantage, right? But in a forest, all right, the compost is made on site. You know, the microbes, the fungi, they do their thing, they do their little dance, you know, and then everything kind of gives back and forms this whole system. You know, so it's not just one individual part; it's the whole type of thing. And that's what I feel we need to do in terms of sustainability, because the way we do things at the moment, it doesn't consider everything on site. It doesn't consider waste management on site.
And look at factory farming. I mean, anyone that hears factory, if you don't know by now, it is destroying our planet. It's the water is going into the rivers.
No.
We're destroying the animal, and we're taking that into ourselves. It's
You know, like, I mean, you just gotta look at nature, right? Nowhere in nature is there modern culture where anything.
or ammonia in food.
Right, yeah. I mean, like, what's that thing that they say? We all eat organic, whole food now, whereas as our parents called food.
Yes.
Right? It's such a big thing now, whereas back in, not even that long ago, right, food was clean, right? There wasn't this whole chemical analysis approach. Oh, you need NPK, you need this, that. No, it's this holistic approach.
The whole thing.
Right? That's why we use chicken poop or whatever. It's part of that. You know, when you look at intelligent farming and all of these permaculture design practices, it's all about conserving energy. You know, nothing is trash, right? Everything is reused by the system. You know, it fuels the system to move forward. You know, and us as humans, because we have this ability to, well, cut with a knife and analyze and all of that, we can use that to accelerate specific parts of the process, but not isolating out of the process. You know, like if you talk about cannabis, you know, people always like CBD, this THC, whatever, but it's whole plant medicine, right? We still don't fully understand, why does a plant make these compounds in these specific ratios? Yet we want to say it's the one thing, right? Like, I mean, you can look, we don't understand, right? So and this is the thing about nature, everything is always self-regulating, right? You eat this, it has enzymes for digesting that. Everything comes in the parcel. It's not like, oh, you got to eat this, then you got to take that, you got to take this.
Yes, it's complete.
Yeah, it's all complete. And like, this is the thing, that union, that yoga, that wholeness, right? And that for me is being sustainability, and this is why we do all of these
But
things.
then also, obviously not everybody thinks like us. Like, there are people out there that just don't care for the well-being of others or for themselves. It's a greedy, it's
you can't blame them.
I mean, and when we hide behind the corporate as, oh, it's this machine, it's this robot thing. It isn't. It's run by people. It is people that are sitting in those chairs. It is people that are making the decisions that influence everybody's life. So, I don't know, I guess what I'm saying is, how do we get industry to get on board?
Industry will follow consumers. Like, if you as the consumer want, I don't know, there's this big shift to, let's call it vertical farming fixtures that you can just kind of put on your wall in your garden type of thing. Industry will provide for that. There'll be somebody that'll be like, hey, I can make a profit, I can leverage, I can whatever, supply and demand, and then it'll get it.
So how do you provide a system that is equal for all and fair to all and enough for everyone? Because there are so many people now that don't have. So which means we're looking for non-monetary system. How does industry that's all about the money? Obviously, they wouldn't want this movement. They would fight it.
Well, no, you see, the thing is, they're like, the person that can't see the future or can't see past what's happening now will fight it because that's what they believe is going to happen. There's that other thing about, they say London was going to be covered in horse shit because they didn't see the coming of the motor engine, right? So the same thing with industry. They'll only fight it if they're not innovative. And this is what I think the human condition is, to be innovative, right? To innovate. So, like, it has to come from us. That's the reality of the situation, right? And what can we do on a daily basis?
Yes.
Grow your own food. Make your home sustainable. Because then industry will be like, oh, okay, people aren't buying tomatoes anymore. Maybe we must start producing tomato home kits. Tomato, you know what I mean?
Okay.
These types of things. And then they'll be like, oh, okay, cool. And then there's a new, different way that we do things in all of these types of things. And that's how the new stuff comes about, right? Somebody's like, let's try and innovate, let's try that. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, cool.
And it trends, and then there it goes.
Yeah.
So I guess for the human, there isn't much for us to do other than just sitting back and let life unfold. And vote with our money, with our actions, by planting our own food.
So I think
growing our own medicine.
I think there's a lot of work to be done because, right, like, with this idea of wholeness, right, everything has to be whole. That comes with the individual as well. So we need to take responsibility for our mental wellness. We need to invest the time. It's very easy to give up your time because you have to work your job, you got to do this, you got to do that. And it's okay, as we get old, you can just pay for this to be replaced, pay for that to be fixed, pay for that, So but in reality, it's not a holistic way of living. I mean, that's what we do. We try and share with people a more sustainable way of living life. All right? So that I think you can't just sit back and let things happen. You have to take ownership of not what they have or what they're doing, because that's their business. What's your business is what you can have control of in your immediate, and that's generally your thoughts, your body, what you put into your body. That's gonna dictate your consumer's choices, which has that ripple effect. But if you're in two minds about what to do, that's where the problem is. You need to kind of sit, meditate, smoke some ganja, get into that space of reflection, observation. And this is the thing why I think everybody should, okay, if you're lactose intolerant, don't drink milk. Same thing with cannabis. If you have a predisposition to psychosis or any type of mental illness, maybe work on some CBD strains or look at a way of using cannabis, because there's some research that shows it can actually help. But Anyway, get into that so that we can get into the space of, okay, listening to the body, because the body is going to tell you, like it's this amazing tool. It's the most amazing tool we'll ever come into, use in our lives, but we don't take the time to listen and learn and really use it in a way. I mean, your mind can be programmed to take in information on a subconscious level, photo reading, there's so much stuff that we have the ability to do, to access, but we want them to solve it.
Yes, or the doctor. We don't take the responsibility to eat healthy, to exercise, to have a healthy output. We want to take the pill. Oh, the doctor didn't do this. The doctor didn't check that.
And this is the thing about doctors as well. They're following what somebody else told them. The only person realistically.
Well, also on the giants.
Yeah.
Industry.
But I mean, we know that stuff can be so skewed because of profit and money and all of this. The only thing that you can really trust is your own intuition, your own experience. And if you can't trust that, you need to spend some time to listen, to learn how to trust that. Because that's being comfortable with yourself, right? And then when we get into that space, I mean, because let's think about this. Your body you've had your whole life. So you on a subconscious level know what's going on. Yes, you can resist it with the logical thought of trying to figure it out or whatever. But intuitively, right, if you put your hand in the fire, your body knows to pull it out, right? So I know this from my experience, if I sit in meditation, I can generally get to the root of the problem based on sensation, based on these types of things, not so much in the logical rhetoric. And that's Cannabis helps me to get there, with the meditation. That's why I use it, dawn till dusk, pretty much.
Okay, so I just want to check the questions and check the time, because we know how this thing just cuts sometimes.
We've got 15 minutes.
Yes, there. Thank you so much. TheVenusProject.com.
Zeitgeist Movement, Peter Joseph.
I don't think Zeitgeist is going anymore.
No, I checked. They have. It's interesting because they were all together, and then I don't know, human nature. People have
politics, right?
Right, and then they split. But they both have good information because Zeitgeist Movement, they talk about human nature, the human condition, violence, anger, all of these types of things. Prisons. Oh, and just another really, really good documentary if you're interested in. It's by Michael Moore. It's Where to Invade Next. Right.
Yeah, this is good.
Yeah, it's a good one.
He's funny.
Yeah.
I don't usually like his stuff, but that was really good.
Yeah.
What is the time now?
We got. Well.
Oh, okay. Okay, so intelligent cities. Better thinking that will incorporate all people.
Micro industry, really,
Niche markets, that seems to be
these small kind of pockets of thingy. Because I mean, maybe you sew, you can create your own whatever. Maybe you create beer, you brew beer, you can do your own. These micro industries. A lot of the insights I get from is like watching nature and observing how nature does things. And I get this, like there was this video that I saw on the internet. It had to do with how viruses become resistant to antibiotics, right? Antibiotics. And what it is like, I'm sure you guys have seen it as well. This like the antibiotics get more and more stronger as they go through the medium, and they've got this virus or organism or whatever, and you'll see it basically starts to grow towards the barrier. I'll spend some time in that barrier, and then it crosses the hurdle, and then the whole virus kind of spills over, right? So that's kind of like the approach that I think we need to have, really. It's this, like, we need to give everybody the opportunity to be a complete human, right? So we give them a home that can actually provide them with everything that they need. And then...
But who's going to give them this home? Like, that's going to cost money.
No, but we build it into the system. Right? Just as the fact that every house needs sanitation, every house needs power,
But every house doesn't have that.
But we're moving towards it. We have utopian ideas. It's never gonna be, ideal. It's gonna be something mishmash up. There's gonna be people that fall shy. There's gonna be, that's where we are today, right? But this is the thing about that whole virus analogy is, right? Like there's viruses that don't make it over, but when the one makes it over, everybody makes it over. right? So that's what we got to do. We've got to start. I mean, you could start right now, do the whole grow food, not lawns thing, right? Neighborhoods can start sustainably and take that food and donate it to the people that don't have. You know, I mean, that's something we can do now. Don't need any.
Yeah, everywhere it's like outside on the road here. Why are we not growing fruit and vegetable? And as the people walk past, they can just help themselves.
If you look at permaculture, Bill Mollison, Jeff Lawton, all of these amazing giants, they talk about food forests. You know, if we just a small portion of our city parks, especially here in Joburg, if we just designate that to food production, just to feed the poor, you know, and also we can use it as places to educate people about growing food and sustainability and all of that. So you get communities that come to free, government sponsored. Isn't that what the government is there for? To push these initiatives, right? So if you're
so we need to go to the government with it then.
Well, I like I said,
I mean, do we take to the streets? Do we protest?
No, protesting for me, yes, it's great. You know, we get awareness, but for me, like there's better messages can be brought across through action, right? Not just shouting and screaming, through action. So we get communities, people, you to start growing in your backyard, right? Maybe Joe Bloggs grows spinach and John Doe grows tomatoes, and then they swap, right? What happens then? My neighbor gets to know this neighbor. We form community bonds instead of just having this disconnected society, and that's what they want, right?
But I guess for people it's like, oh, it's cheap enough to just pay for the luxury of just picking up the spinach. Again, money is the problem.
Well, like this is the thing that I don't think people necessarily understand. There's no such thing as a free meal, right? So if you're paying cheap on these potatoes, it's because the farmer did something there, because he got subsidy, or he got somebody's footing the bill. Maybe he did
the laborer.
Yeah, exactly. Generally, it's the cheap labor that pays the cost of cheap food. You know, so the next time you're like worried about cost, I mean, it's like with anything, you pay what you get for, right? If you with this body, if you want to really work with it in a holistic sense, you got to give it the best quality of nutrition, right? And everything with that sprayed with so heavy in pesticides and all of that, you can't trust any of that. What can you trust? What comes out your backyard, you know? And like if you look at nutrition and raw food and all of these types of things, phytoenzymes and food, when you buy it, it's already decayed or it's been artificially ripened. But if it's in your garden, it's had the time to naturally get the sugars up and get their full flavors and all of those types of things. So very, very different to store-bought stuff. And I think we all know this, right? Organic stuff is so amazing. Well, that's why there's this whole hype trend. But like I said, organic food, or as we used to know it, food. Just grow in your garden. You'll get the meditative aspect behind it, working in the soil. You'll boost your immunity because we're not isolated, we're part of the system. Soil has healthy microbes, B12, it's a fungus or a type of organism in the soil. We're part of the system. That's for me is what sustainability is. Yeah.
I just dream of these beautiful cities that are built smart and intelligently and that provides for everyone. And I really dream of this utopia world, and that everybody is happy and everybody has enough, and that animals are not being treated the way that they are, and people are not being treated the way that they are. That's all. And we are not recruiting people for an army, for a revolutionary army. We're not planning to overthrow the government. This is just a discussion. It's ideas. It's things that we usually talk about. This is where our minds go.
It's like generally when I speak to people about this type of stuff, the conversation always goes to, oh, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. I'm like, okay, fine, fair enough, that's your opinion. And I've known, and you've probably known from your own experience, if you tried it, maybe shit, it worked, right? So this is the thing, your own experience is key. Learn to listen to yourself, let go of those layers, lift the veil, use cannabis, it helps you see straight, right?
So if there's any questions, it still looks like the same. If there's any questions. Are there anything that you wanted to bring up or share with people? We don't have much time left. Sorry that I'm a bit paranoid with the time, but
yeah, we get cut off.
keep getting cut off, and I'm like, oh, I still wanted to.
The only thing that I would basically say is, we need to become more comfortable with ourselves and learning to trust our own intuition. A lot of the information out there, specifically with the way that we get information, is through gossip channels, gossip media. So it isn't actual information, so you can't really trust what you're hearing. And a lot of the fights that happen online nowadays, it's because of just, I don't know. How can you argue about something that you have no actual experience about?
Because we experience the world through this.
Yeah.
Right? Especially now lately, nobody's allowed to leave the house, and more people are getting back to it now. But this is our world. Yeah. And it's so easily manipulated.
Yeah, I love that story. I tell it often about Chicken Little or whatever. The sky is falling. Because if you look at this thing, it says the sky is falling. But I mean, if you look outside, other than it being a bit cold,
the sky is not falling.
And I know in my reality, we've been living this hermit existence now for quite some time. So our lives really haven't changed, other than the
not seeing our people at the studio
and the mask situation, obviously. But generally, I mean, we're just living from home, working from home,
in the garden, smoking cannabis,
meditation.
Yoga.
Yeah,
Sending the good vibes out every month, because when we are in love and happy, that is when we stay healthy. Don't get into arguments, people. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Love each other. I know it's easier said than done. I know I also get into arguments. Sorry.
Yeah, well, just spend that time, working on yourself.
But this is the thing, discomfort is good. That's when you see, oh, there's work to do within myself, there's resistance, or, how can I be more compassionate? How can I speak better? How can I word my language so that it is inclusive and it's not hurtful? There's much work for everyone to do, all of us, and the yoga practice is essential.
Yeah, I know with me, when I did my teacher training, that was really because when you teacher training, it's more than just teacher training. It's about the manual, right?
Yes.
It's the manual of how to manage emotions, life, thoughts, all of that type of stuff, which is really something that I think we should be given as kids. And the philosophy is also great. Stories, where people, we pass information through stories. So yeah, it's that self-reflection, the ability to go in oneself and observe and watch and listen. People struggle with that because, if you spend your whole life neurons firing specific thought patterns, it's hard to break that cycle. And
because we're also addicted to those chemicals that those thoughts release. So we keep thinking those thoughts. We want the drug. All addicted to our stories, really.
And when we get into psychedelics and all of these types of things,
that's having a conversation for another time.
But what I'm trying to say is they help to disrupt the thought patterns. Those, that's
and then it's different chemicals in your blood. And then you're like, oh, this actually makes me feel much better.
And you look different, you see the world literally through different eyes. It doesn't have to be so intense or whatever. You can do it on a microdose level. So you get the healing, the benefit. And that's kind of what I was talking about in terms of cannabis. A lot of people have bad experiences because they do too much too soon.
Too much too soon. And maybe that's what we want to do with the system as well. So we want too much too soon because we're getting impatient because we've been living like this for a long time. So...
Well, this is the thing. It needs to get uncomfortable.
It needs to accelerate. Pick up.
It needs to get uncomfortable for it to change. Otherwise, it's just going to stay the same. It's just the way that we're built, or for now anyway, this specific setup.
Okay, well, I think that is enough for one day, you guys. Thank you so much for dialing in and for checking up on us. We will make this available on YouTube as well. There was something in terms with the studio teacher training. The next one is starting in August. It will be both online and in person. So go and check it out. I've extended the early bird fee until the end of this month. I hope that you guys can join us or join us for class. I'd love to see you.
Yeah, we can chat
We
solutions.
miss you. Yes, let's have these interesting conversations. Let's drink some tea, I was going to say, but I guess we can't offer people tea anymore. Anyway, we're going to get through this, you guys.